President and His Excellency the Deputy President are protected by a special formation we call the Presidential Escort Unit. This unit is trained, prepared, and their single or singular responsibility is to protect the presidency and protect the President and His Excellency the Deputy President. If you look at the diagram that I've given you, and I've left out so many details for obvious reasons because it's a document that is going to be exposed to the public. If you look at the protection of the Deputy President in terms of its infrastructure, is a multi-layered endeavor. The layer that is critical to us is the inner layer, which is essentially the core security ecosystem for His Excellency the Deputy President. And this is occupied by the Presidential Escort Unit. Currently, His Excellency the Deputy President has got 74 officers, that layer, who provide 24/7 protection of His Excellency the Deputy President. And if I didn't remove the details on this, if I brought the actual architecture as it's drawn and presented by security people, which I can't because this is an open meeting for obvious reasons, we normally say that the protection is given regardless of where, when, how the protection is given. The presidential escort regardless protecting the Deputy President, where, when he's seated, standing, lying down, moving. The presidential escort 24/7 protecting the Deputy President. And he has got 74 when he's seated, standing, lying down, under the command of 24/7 a commissioner of police. And he has got 74 officers as a commissioner of police dedicated under the command, assisted by a commissioner of police. By one commissioner of police dedicated to this, assisted by by one senior superintendent of police. And by tradition, and by law, that is how the holders of that office are protected. By tradition, Mr. Chairman, I have taken the trouble, that is how, to demonstrate to you, because I went back to the records, and if you look at the document, Mr. Chairman, I have taken the trouble, Annex 2, to demonstrate to you, because I went back to the trouble to demonstrate to you, have marked Annex 2. The holders of that office have been protected the trouble to demonstrate from that unit that I have shown you that strength have been protected before. From that unit, personnel that protected that office before, I have shown you the strength, and I've shown you the highest rank of command of personnel that protected that office protection before. You will notice at the end of that document that the current holder of that office has got the highest number of personnel to be ever assigned in that office, and also the highest ranking police officer to command that protection of the current holder of the office, because Honorable Jaramogi Oginga Odinga had 30 officers. Honorable Joseph Murumbi had 22. Honorable Daniel Arap Moi had 34. Honorable President Mwai Kibaki had 26. The Honorable Josephat Karanja, 22. Honorable the late Professor George Saitoti, 30. Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, 22. And Honorable Michael Kijana Amalwa, 22. Honorable Mudi Awori, 22. Honorable Raila Odinga, although he did not occupy that office when he was Prime Minister, had 57. And Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, 26. The current holder of that office, the Honorable His Excellency Dr. William Ruto, has got 74. And you notice that throughout the period, in addition to the 74 officers there, we have a dedicated team of GSU officers, 5 in number, highly trained. I would not want to go into any details about this for obvious reasons. We have 5 GSU officers because His Excellency the Deputy President is driven by GSU officers. That is why it is actually frustrating to hear people saying GSU was withdrawn from His Excellency the Deputy President. In addition to that, the Deputy President has got 6 DCI officers. So in that inner layer, you have 74 presidential escort, you have 5 from GSU, and you have 6 from DCI, a total of 85 officers. That is the inner layer, layer 1. Layer 2, you have 121 that I've mentioned from the various formations. And these formations, these are, people who patrol compounds and so on and so forth. I will shortly demonstrate to you that we have additional security staff looking after the Deputy President. Then there's the third layer. The third layer is auxiliary security layer. We have auxiliary security because the holder of that office, if is endowed to also have active business life or active economic life or active other life, may be in various places or may work in various places and add as other activities and other interests in other places. So, for example, in that outer layer, we have I'm saying about because I'm going to explain to you shortly what that means. There are officers who are assigned by the Inspector General because of a direct request from the Office of the Deputy President to installations either owned by the Deputy President or businesses where the Deputy President is likely to spend time, and therefore his security is a concern. There are officers who are made available by the local police command depending on where His Excellency the Deputy President's business or activities may be. So we call those ones secondary notifications from secondary role players in his office. For example, if the Deputy President has a farm in Moroni and his manager notifies the sub-count commander in Moroni that this farm belongs to the Deputy President, the practice in the police service is that the local police command will factor in their beat arrangement as they move around. They will factor in X number of police officers who, in their patrol and their movement, will keep an eye on that farm in Moroni because of that interest. So those ones we call, they are made available. They out of that secondary notification. But there are some who, because of the interest of the Deputy President in particular areas, his office requests directly that we avail police officers. And for example, I can't go down the list. The whole list is long, but I'm going to give you about 10 examples of installations where there are police officers because of the fact that the Deputy President may go there or may have interest or may spend time there. And this is why I said the number of about 51. It could be more than that. For example, Kitengela Gas, where the Deputy President has gas oil business, 6 police officers. These ones are stationed. Weston Hotel, about 6 police officers. Because if they are 4 on duty, 2 at night, 2 during the day, there will be 2 other relievers, as it were. Murumbi Farm, Transmara Narok, LR, Transmara stroke Intona, stroke 34, 395 or about 1,000 acres, 395 hectares, 6 police officers. ADC Laikipia, Mutara Ranch, about 15,000 acres, 6 police officers. These are the secondary notifications. A farm where we are not stationing personnel, but the local police command has been notified that that is an area where the DP may be interested. So as you do your beat planning, you plan your beat with that in mind and make sure that that is okay. Dolphin Hotel, Mombasa, 6. Mata Farm, Taita Taveta, about 2,500 acres, LR 10287/10/11, 6 police officers. There is a private residence in Elgon View, we have 4. There's a poultry farm in Eldoret, we have 4. There is a private residence again here in Eldoret where we have 3 prison warders and 1 AP. There is also an installation, for example, called Kwai Island Development Limited. I think this is Wilson Airport where there are 2 hangars and 5 helicopters. The local police command is notified by secondary notification to avail about 5 police officers to look after that. So we have roughly in that deployment, that general assignment, you are talking about those who are stationed, like the ones in Weston or in Kitengela Gas, present there, and those who, through secondary notification, the local police command would factor their own beat planning to make sure that if that's a farm that's owned by the DP, his animals are there, or his property is there, you keep an eye on that. But still, it's a resource for us in the security sector. So cumulatively, when you look at that, Mr. Chairman, sir, and you go back to Annex 2, in conclusion, then, you will see that cumulatively, the personnel, in terms of personnel, the strength of personnel allocated to this office is 257. As I've tabulated, I've told you 74 from presidential escort, 5 DCI, 5 GSU, 6 DCI, total 85. Then you had the 121, as I said, plus about, this figure may not, the 51 may not actually be totally accurate, because given the amount of time that we had, we didn't get all the notifications where they have been given. There could be slightly more than that. But then we're roughly working with that estimate. That is the strength of personnel. I have not listed the assets for obvious reasons, Mr. Chairman, sir. This is an open meeting. And I think it will be prejudicial to security to go to details beyond this. The point I'm making is this, Mr. Chairman, sir. We have provided sufficient security to the holder of the office of Deputy President in our country. And as the CS in charge, I want to assure both the committee and the country that I am not aware of anything in the past or in the present that has come close to threatening the security of the holder of the office of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya. We are very highly trained personnel in the security sector. We take this as a very fundamental duty and a fundamental responsibility, because it's not just a matter of national security, it's also a matter of our national pride. It is also a matter of the image of the country. Because if the security of number 2 in command is an issue of concern, then it means we are actually a bunch of jokers and there's nothing we are doing. We have done the best we can in all circumstances to ensure that we provide sufficient security to the holder of the office of the Deputy President. As for the rearrangement, Mr. Chairman, sir, I would like to say, I don't talk about withdrawal. There was no withdrawal. It's a rearrangement of the second layer of security by the Inspector General of Police. The Inspector General exercises discretion, but in matters of that kind, he also consults within the structures of the security sector, the National Security Advisory Committee, NSAC, the National Security Council. That decision, Mr. Chairman, and I want to be very sincere to you here, was not whimsical. It's not something that the Inspector General woke up in the morning and said, I am going to reorganize this security in this particular manner. So many considerations were made. We looked at a number of things, some of which I would beg your indulgence that I don't have to discuss here, because this is an open meeting and some of those things may be prejudicial to the security of our country. And besides, I don't have the clearance of the Council to discuss its deliberations on that kind of matter. What has happened, however, has all been legal, procedural, has been done effectively. And as I've demonstrated to you, Mr. Chairman, honorable members, we've acted very openly and very considerately. If there is any issue that we need to respond to in this matter, as long as it's not one that is going to be prejudicial to operational detail, we can respond to it. But I want to urge you, before I end my submission to the committee, that please, Mr. Chairman, sir, honorable members, speak for us, because when we are insulted at funerals and churches and all those places, we have no way of defending ourselves. And those who are doing that, don't ask us the facts. I have demonstrated to you, for example, that the protection unit that protects His Excellency the Deputy President from the presidential escort of 74 people is intact. No one touched it. And for the first time since independence, and I've demonstrated to you since Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, I've demonstrated to you this is the time it has the highest level of qualification in terms of command. We are serious enough. So it's not right to insinuate that there is failure on our part or there are gaps in what we are doing. There are no gaps at all. Everything that is being done is being done procedurally, and everything that is being done is being done clearly according to the law. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I very respectfully submit.
Very well, thank you, Honorable CS, for that submission. I'm sure members are now well informed and they'll be able to engage. So members, I will give chance to those who wish to clarify further. But even as I do that, I am interested to know, because I've looked at this table which is of interest, that is Annex 2, and all the way from when Honorable Jaramogi Oginga Odinga started as the Vice President, I want to believe that, all the way the numbers have not exceeded 60. That is the combined security, both presidential escort and any other. Now this one, you're telling us the presidential escort is 74, and there's another 121 APs, another 5 GSU drivers, 6 DCI, and 51 from various properties, totaling to 257. And that's very, very important. So what informs this number of 257 that you have now provided? Is it the case that when His Excellency the Deputy President, or for example the chair of this esteemed committee, requests for security, now that I am in this committee, I can get any number that I want? And how does that sit in the light of the security challenges in the country? Because as much as you are aware, I'm coming from Kirinyaga and there were security issues there. How does that sit with the challenges that you have? Does it then also pose a challenge for your provision of security? Secondly, what caused the rearrangement? I don't know whether you'll say that is a security issue, but what caused that rearrangement to happen for the security of the Deputy President? And then I will also leave it to members. You just speak all of them and you will answer. We'll start with Honorable Chekut, then we'll go to Honorable Albere, and then Honorable Masara, in that order. Then we will take round 2.
Chairman, permit me to ask the following question to our respected Cabinet Secretary, Dr. Fred Matiang'i. Fred, you are a great man. We are discussing a national discourse, a sensitive issue. Where I come from, this issue has raised a lot of tensions. And therefore, let me ask 2 questions. Deputy President William Ruto, security has been downgraded suddenly. Was this move justified? And if so, why now? In the countdown to general election, all presidential aspirants have been, it has been a tradition, our Cabinet Secretary, that their security are reinforced. And me personally, I believe in unity in diversity. I'm a man who took my heart. The great gospel singer, an Israeli, once said, truth is constant. According to Article 131 of our Constitution, A, His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta is the President, head of state and government, According to Article 131B, he is the chairman of Security Council. According to Article 131C, he is the Commander-in-Chief of Kenya Defense Forces, 5-star General. And according to Article 131E, he is the symbol of national unity, Cabinet Secretary. Whereas, according to Article 130, William Ruto is the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, as well as his principal assistant. Their relationship with the President are like conjoined twins. Their relationship are symbiotic. You can't separate the two. You are suitable enough, you are competent enough, you are a scholar to interpret the Constitution. I, William Chepkuta, I took an oath of office to protect, to uphold, and defend the supremacy of our constitutional institution and its constitutional institutions like DPP and IBC, just but to mention a few. Having said that...
Okay, member, now ask the question. You have laid the background.
Yeah.
Now ask the question.
Having said that, Cabinet Secretary, I submit with a lot of, because we want to tolerate each other. Let's tolerate each other, let's forgive each other, let's commit each other, let's accommodate each other. I want you, it is my sincere request, that return the security of Deputy President. That is my submission.
You will be able to take that, Honorable Alberi.
Thank you, Chair.
And if I may give guidance so that we allow other members also to be able to ask questions. Don't put too much of background. If you can be able to raise the question directly.
I want to just go straight to the question, Chair. Chairman, having listened to the Cabinet Secretary explaining, giving us the background of the whole scenario, which we indeed appreciate, that I thought, going by what the media has actually been portraying, is that the highly trained security officers deployed to the Deputy President were the GSU. And after their withdrawal, then the Deputy President is exposed. That is the picture I had. However, I appreciate actually the way the Cabinet Secretary has explained, and I'm actually contented that indeed the Deputy President has all the security required for his protection. However, as a matter of national security concern, I want to ask, did the Cabinet Secretary inform the Deputy President about these security changes, either in writing or verbally, so that he may understand that there are some changes which are about to take place, and therefore he should be made aware? That is one. Secondly, Chairman, I also would like to ask the Cabinet Secretary, other than the security personnel, the physical officers deployed to provide security within the establishments, either the Deputy President or even the President or other dignitaries, as explained in Annex 2, people who had served not only as vice presidents, because we have high dignitaries who have served all their life in serving our country, whether there are other technological gadgets, for instance, like CCTV or even drones for that matter. Because personnel will never be enough to provide security to each and everyone. But at least a gadget like a drone, if properly used, can be able to give us information, and it can be able to provide all the security that is needed. Was that provided? Thank you.
Right, Honorable Masara.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. I appreciate the response given by the CS Interior, and we have the annexes which can explain much, but I want him to explain to the nation what Article 245 talks about the independence of Inspector General in commanding the police service in Kenya, so that everybody can understand. Two, the issue of protecting the deputy president. Have we reached a stage where the deputy president of the Republic of Kenya can be protected by G4S? I hope I'll get that answer. The third one is, can we get information on the property which were owned by previous vice presidents, so that we can compare vis-a-vis the number of officers given to the current DP chair? And finally, why is it that the CS is applying law selectively? We have been stopped from meeting people in our homes as elected representatives of the people, but the official residence of the deputy president is hosting thousands and thousands of people every day, and they are being protected by the same Kenya police. Yet, even where he comes from, a deputy governor of Kisii was stopped from holding a meeting in his home. But the second house in the land holds meeting despite COVID protocols being breached. Can we get information if we are in this country or one country or two countries? Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, that last bit, the CS, you have discretion to answer or not, because we want to deal specifically with security issues. CS, respond to those four, and then we'll pick another round.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. A total of about 8 questions. I will be very specific, very precise in responding to them. What determines the numbers? We go by requests and what you may describe broadly as expanse. You know, Mr. Chairman, if you become the deputy president of the country and you are also coming from the business background, or you have capacities, not all of us, there are Kenyans who have 2-3 homes, there are Kenyans who have 1 home, and we are different people. We are not going to stop, insist on, we don't have a president in this country where there's a limit to how many installations we can look after and so on. Plus, you see, my colleagues and I in the security sector live in this fear all the time that should anything happen to a senior leader in government, like the deputy president, it will not only embarrass the country and subject all of us to ridicule, it will be difficult to explain to the people of Kenya. So it depends on the expanse and what you have and what you don't have. And I think I could tie this to what Honorable Masara asked about whether I can provide the properties of the various other predecessors, I mean, to the holder of the current office. What I've given you is everything they had. If they didn't have a kiosk, they didn't have. We just gave them, they were given 22 police officers, that's all, to guide them around as they moved around. If they didn't have a school, they didn't have a school. You know, if they didn't have a place where they would go, if they didn't have a home in Isiolo, for example, so that home also in Isiolo can be looked after, they didn't have it. So what I've given you, or what we drew from the police records, is all that was allocated. I mean, what Jaramogi was allocated is what he was allocated. What Musalia Mudavadi was allocated was what was allocated. That is his Nairobi home and his home in Vihiga. So if he didn't have a home in Isiolo, another one in Nakuru, another one somewhere else, it expands. It depends on, you know, the capacities and what you're able to have from time to time. The police will go that particular way. That is how they are guided in that particular respect. So the numbers are not necessarily determined by us. In fact, I dare say that if we would be absolutely honest and tell you that if we matched all the requests that are being made from certain offices in cases like this, we can't afford it. It becomes very difficult. But it also depends on the expanse. Who is where, what, who has what, where, who goes where, and so on. If today a Yamazimbo teacher become the deputy president and my home is only 1 or 2, that's what will be protected, and that's what happens to all leaders and so on. So how does this sit with the ratio? Well, you know, we've been working very hard, Mr. Chairman, and you know, as our security committee, that we are barely moved to a ratio of 1 to 600 in terms of police to population. We're racing against the UN ratio of 1 to 450. But look, there is a point to which you also, as leaders, need to understand the tradition and the way in which we have operated in the security sector in our country. I've seen people asking me questions, for example, saying, why do you provide security to this private facility? Or why do you provide security to look after chicken, somebody's chicken business and so on? And asking the converse is this: what if there was a notification by a local manager to a county police commander or a sub-county police commander that this property belongs to so and so, it needs to be looked after, and then they didn't look after that and something happened? We would be facing the same problems we are facing now. We would be accused, oh, we don't care protecting other people's property, it's being destroyed while we are watching, and so on and so forth. We're in a catch-22 situation. You know, you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. But the situation is what it is. It's not a decision that is made willy-nilly by the Inspector General of Police and the people in the security sector. Some of it is driven by demand, some of it is driven, as said, by secondary notifications from personnel and people who are associated with these offices. It is not a burden to us. Let me say that. It has not become a burden to us yet. We are able to provide security, and we are able to continue supporting the office of the Deputy President. The question that was asked by Honorable Chebukut about downgrading the security of the Deputy President, we haven't downgraded the security of the Deputy President. In fact, this is a propagandist approach to this, and almost a lovable thing to imagine. With this level of personnel, and I've not talked about the assets that we have deployed. If you knew the assets that we have deployed in providing, you cannot talk about downgrading the security of the Deputy President. The rearrangement is an action that was done by the Inspector General. As I said, I won't explain the details of it in an open meeting like this. But it's not whimsical. It's considered, in order. The Inspector General takes decisions after so many considerations, as it were. And as I said, he would consult, colleagues in the security sector. He would go to NSAC and other organs. He doesn't just decide off, on top of his mind like that. Did the CS inform the DP? This is routine. Honestly speaking, if we were not in the political context in which we are as a country, there are times when some of us wake up in the morning and wonder, what is wrong with us as a country? The things that we spend time talking about, and so this is really routine. If you ask anybody today, Mr. Chairman, if you walked here to Jar House and asked the regional commissioner for Nairobi, who are the chief inspectors around Nairobi, he wouldn't tell you, because we keep moving them around from time to time. He will turn up at Kilimani, and a gentleman will introduce himself. I'm the chief inspector of police, this is what I do, and so on. It's routine work. So are you going to spend your time, every time you are doing routine work? Our job is routine, to make sure that we protect the VVIPs in our midst. So are you going to spend time talking about routine things? For the IG, the rearrangement is a quasi-routine assignment. And then this is not something for which I would write a letter to His Excellency the Deputy President. Or why would I write a letter about then I would be writing 10 or 15 letters, because how many times have we reorganized personnel, not just there or in any other installations? I would be writing a letter to every minister. Every time we rearrange security, I would be writing letters to every constitutional office holder, to the Speaker of the National Assembly, to the Chief Justice. Every time we rearrange.
Maybe, yes, you can tell us, because you have stationed, you said you stationed 74 GSU officers there. Are they constant, the same people, or do you keep changing them? And do you then address the DP, or do you tell him when you want to change them? Or they are the same people who started and are still there?
The presidential escort team is an exclusive team across the country. They are exclusive because they are trained, they are prepared for that job. The commanders of that team are people who have been working with His Excellency the Deputy President for a long time. We haven't changed them. That is the cause, as I showed you in Annex 1 of my document, that is the core team that provides security to His Excellency the Deputy President. Probably, actually, if you were changing those ones, you would have reason probably to tell the Deputy President. But these others are doing almost routine work. So why would you write a letter every day or inform him every day? The presidential escort team is intact. Its commanders are intact. They are the same people who have been working with him. They are there. He has not expressed any concern about any one of them. And they have been working with him all along. He has not raised any issue. And if he did, he would probably raise it with the Inspector General who's here, and the Inspector General has not informed me of any of that kind. But these others, like layer 2, layer 3, and so on, you can't be communicating on work that is supposed to be done by office holders like the Inspector General. They're basically doing their work. That's why some of us are actually wondering why the hullabaloo when we are doing the rearrangement that we are doing, or the Inspector General is doing the rearrangement that is doing. Have we deployed other technology to support the office of the Deputy President? Mr. Chairman, I ask the indulgence of the committee. My colleagues here, the heads of the agencies, will not allow me to discuss operational issues and the difficult issue. All I can say here is that we have sufficient assets, and actually, because of the budget that you have given us consistently, our acquisitions have kept going up year in, year out. And we have acquired sufficient assets to protect our leaders. There is none of them who is in any particular danger. And of course, the Deputy President of the country is not in any danger at all. We have sufficient assets, we have sufficient personnel, we are fine, and we are protecting him without a problem. I would not like to go to operational issues and address those kinds of. The independence of the Office of the Inspector General, that is why sometimes we ask the question, do we actually respect this independence? When the Inspector General takes discretion because of information he has, makes presentations and raises issues and talks with us and so on and so forth, and then every so often we come back to excoriate him, to Mr. Chairman, as our leader in security, you know this, and all of you members of Parliament who belong to this committee, you know the number of decisions that the IG makes on a 24-hour cycle is incredible. We can't second guess them. They make these decisions independently, but of course they consult with the other organs of the security environment. And we all agree with them on this particular decision he made to make the rearrangement. We are all aligned, we are all agreed. I wish those who are actually raising concerns about this, especially because they have access to facts and they can get this information, they look for the information and facts about it. Allow me, Mr. Chairman, sir, to not comment anything about that issue of G4S. I don't want to trivialize the matters of this country and the security of our country in that kind of manner. I don't want to be that petty. I mean, we are a serious country. We are respected around the world. We are a serious government elected by the people of Kenya, given serious responsibilities. I would not like to comment and to be so flippant as to comment on things like those about G4S and so on. On the issue of, lastly, applying the law selectively, you gave me discretion to skip the answer, but suffice it to say, we are not applying the law selectively. Sometimes it boils down to people also taking moral responsibilities as national leaders. Because it gets to that point, the lives of the people we lead is also a matter of your moral responsibility as a leader. Thank you, sir.
We will pick the second round. I'll pick Honorable Nimrod, Honorable Matiang'i, and Honorable Ambogo.
Chair, before you go, a very important question of mine has not been sufficiently answered.
Which is it?
Article 245.
In regard to what?
The independence of the Inspector of General in managing the way it has been answered is not coming out clearly.
He has done. I thought he did. I was listening so carefully. He answered and he said that's an independent office.
So in short,
unless Honorable CS, you want to put in 2 words so that we also make progress. The other members also want to ask some questions.
Yes, Chair.
But let him go. Let him have a go at it again.
You know, Mr. Chairman, it's a raging debate that has been existing in this country for a very long time. When people talk about independent offices, you're independent from what? Because you see, government is organic in its nature. The Inspector General exercises independence of command. In other words, in terms of deployment and making decisions on what he needs to do and how he executes his duties and so on. But that does not mean that the Inspector General does not work in an ecosystem of constant consultation. We have succeeded so far, and you should know as a security committee in Parliament, our war against terrorism in this country has been much more successful because of our multi-agents approach. We sit together, all of us, share intelligence and work together. That does not undermine the independence of the Office of the Inspector General. It doesn't undermine the independence of the Office of the CTF. In other words, in exercising his powers as the Inspector General of our country, Mr. Matiang'i has taken a decision, run it by all of us, which we are happy with and we are all aligned, and the reasons for which he took the decision are sound and clear, and we accept them, and we support what he has done, especially because we know it has not introduced any gaps or has exposed anyone to danger. So no one has infringed on the powers of the Office of the Inspector General. The Inspector General has not abused his powers. We have continued to work very well. I am satisfied with what he has done, and I have not forced him to make that decision. No one has forced him to make the decision, but he has been responsible enough to consult with us and share the information he has with us, and we agree with him. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Nimrod.
Thank you, Chair. First, allow me to start by conveying my confidence with the heads of our security services, that is the DCI, the 2 DIGs, and the IG, on their training, on their capacity to do strategy and also command of our security organs. Mr. Chair, I have very straight and specific questions. My first question goes to, on Annex 1, Mr. CS, you said you never touched nothing on Cordon 1, or the inner circle has been touched. But the second circle, that is the second cordon, was touched. There is some interest in 3 residents of the Deputy President. And within the 3 residents of the Deputy President, I think the one in Karen, which also doubles as his office, and another one in Isgoi, and I think it's Nakuru Endoret. That one is where the second cordon, we have GSU officers who are undertaking the guarding services of those residences. The GSU officers were interchanged with Administration Police Service officers. There is also, apart from the interchanging, there is also the aspect that there were reduction in numbers. It was not 1-for-1, as in you remove 30 GSU officers and bring 8 Administration Police officers. So I would want clarity on that. Did we remove GSU officers doing the second circle within these 3 homes of the Deputy President and interchanged them with the Administration Police Service officers? And in that, if that happened, in the course of it, did we reduce the numbers of the personnel, of the numbers of the officers? Number 2, how is the command in terms of, we are talking of, especially because the first layer and the second layer, these are people who are always with the Deputy President. And at some point, they will find themselves at the same place. Let's talk of the current home. The people guarding the general areas and the presidential escort unit. These are all armed officers, are all officers under the IG, no matter where they're coming from. How is the command at that time? Who is in charge? As in now, we have Administration Police officers guarding the gates and the general areas. Then we have the Commissioner of Police. Then we have the Presidential Escort Commander. Somebody somewhere, one of the officers has to be in charge of, at a certain point. We can't just have everybody in charge, 3 commanders from 3 different units taking charge of the same residence at a particular time. So who is in charge at that time? Mr. Chair, we are...
Last one, because there are many interests, please.
Mr. Chair, it's better we take the whole day here and accommodate these questions.
You can ask that question, Honorable, please. You can ask that question then in the second lot, because the others also want to ask one question each.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
because the Chair, the person we are talking about is in respect to what Honorable Chibugut has quoted on the Constitution, the duties of the President and what the President does to this country. In the same Constitution, in case there is absence in the offices of the President, the person we are discussing with the deputy president is the person who will take charge immediately. So actually this is like a spare president, and it's not an office that we can discuss anyhowly. Chair, let me go by your instructions. My last concern.
Order, let him finish.
Which is a concern, actually.
Which is in the answer, which need not to go.
Order, I'll give you order. Just finish. Move to finish. Order.
Yeah, Masara Tulizamboli. My third issue, let me leave one of the questions and go for a concern. I believe the action taken has, in a way, opened up our security agencies to unnecessary scrutiny. As in, there were no discussions before this action as to who is superior between the GSU and the APs. And now the removal of the GSU and the bringing of the APs is the one which causing the aspect that there is some downgrading, that the security has been downgraded because the GSUs were superior to the APs. I think, Mr. Chair, that is something which should be addressed, and especially by the IG. It can't go out to the public there, because it means the other Kenyans who are being guarded by the APs out there, they are not as secure as they would be if they were being guarded by the GSU. So I think, and in the wisdom of his deputy president, actually he welcomed these officers, and he spoke about his confidence in the work they are going to do. And it was very clear in the media and in the public domain that he was comfortable with the APs who had been brought to his residence. So I would want to see the same, and especially from the office of the AG, a firefighting kind of mission to downplay that reasoning of there is one service which is superior to another. Thank you.
Yes, Chair.
Yes, just 1 minute.
Yeah, Chair, these are House of Records. In our Constitution, there's nowhere written that we have a spare president. So I want on my to withdraw that statement, because it is nowhere. In our Constitution, there's no spare president.
Indeed, Honorable Mbai, did you refer to the Deputy President, His Excellency, as a spare president?
I never did, Chair.
Yeah, so if in case he did, then I order that we expunge that from the records. Honorable Kingangi. Thank you very much, Honorable Masal.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Let me start by appreciating the security team. I have a lot of confidence in Kenya's security apparatus, their professionalism, and the organization. Having said that, alluded to, and other members have also asked, and it is a bigger question of the public right now. The reason why did the change have to be done? Why now? And given the fact that the service standing orders and even the Act give the GSU the responsibility for State House and state lodges, unless one is arguing that the state lodges are so much superior to the official residence of the Deputy President, then even the question of downgrading can be argued that it was a downgrade. Because if a state lodge which is visited even rarely, sometimes not visited even once a year, is being guarded by GSU, then one could even argue that it is a downgrade. Secondly, the strength of a security force is not the strength of the person standing at the post. It is the strength of the chain of command. It is the strength of the depth, we call it. For instance, the G company that guards the State House is backed up by a Reiki company, which has got sufficient equipment, training, and it is configured as to enable that force to intervene if the need be, to be able to do whatever is necessary depending on the circumstances. So if you bring the SGB to the equation, then what becomes of the chain of command? What becomes of the backup plan? How does it work? So the question why it was done, I think it's still pertinent, and I think it's a big question in the minds of the public. Finally, I don't want to dwell into this. I think as much as we talk about the inner security layer and the outer layer, it has been tradition, and it is also captured in the Act and the standing orders that the GSU does protect. So I don't believe, and I would like to be explained to how the Inspector General has discretion in changing something which is provided for by the Act and the standing orders. So my question is, why? Thank you.
Yeah, I hear that the bigger question around it is, are there GSU officers guarding the residence of the Deputy President? And I think I hear that everybody, and it's cutting across all members.
Let me clarify.
Yes.
The second layer, because that's the argument, that the second layer has been changed, the inner layer has not been changed. The second layer State House is still GSU G company, backed up by the RIC. And it would make sense. It would make sense when the second layer was GSU, backed up by the same RIC company, which has the capability and training to back up.
I get. Now the police chiefs are here. They'll be able to take that up. The last one was Honorable Muji.
No, but a point of order. Chair, I'll be asking my questions.
What is out of order? And you're in the next round.
Yes, I think as members of the Security Committee, we can also not just be throwing words. When you say State House should be guarded as same officers as the residence of the Deputy President, there should be reference to the law and the standing orders. And Honorable Matiang'i, the law talks about State House, state lodges, the President and the Deputy President, not the residence of the Deputy President.
Yes, in fact, I had wanted that to come from the Honorable CS so that they can give us details. I had that question, but let him clarify on that. Honorable Ambu.
Thank you very much, Chair. I will actually start my question from where Honorable Kaluma has just gone in. I wanted to ask the CS to clarify for us, according to the law. We have seen the Act, we have seen it being shared very widely. I have heard my colleague Honorable Matiang'i suggest that the Deputy President's residence should be above State Lodge. That's where I just understood him to be suggesting right now. But the law is very clear. We have the President as a person, the Deputy President as a person, state houses and state lodges being guarded by GSU. What I now wanted to understand, what is the definition of the Deputy President's residence according to the law? Is it categorized into something that then becomes part of what is in the law to be guarded? That's my first question. My second question goes towards timing. We live in this country, all of us, and I'm sure even you are very alive to the fact of the politics. Thank you. I think this is better. But I'm sure you had the first question, so I'll just go to the second one. We live in the country where we are very alive to the politics of the day, and I'm sure you knew that the decision you made was going to be politicized. And I wonder whether you actually factored in how you are going to deal with that. In this time and age, there are going to be people who are going to take a decision like that and make political capital out of it. And I say this because of the very interesting observation I have made. The principal himself, in this case, who is the deputy president, is on record saying he has no problem with the changes that have been made. However, his allies, every single day, are using this to play politics with. And so the question now I have on this...
Point of order, Chair.
You will allow me.
You will allow him to finish, just
when
like
you are allowed to finish.
Yes, yeah, you are allowed you to
think there
finish.
is something that should not continue.
Honorable Mbai, I allowed you to finish, and then I took the point of order. That's how we shall conduct business.
Thank you very much, Chair. The question I was making is, it is on record. The principal himself has said he has no problem with the security arrangement that he has. His allies are the ones who are playing politics with this issue. And now the question I have is, we have a public letter from the chief of staff of the principal complaining about this. Then we have the principal himself saying he has no problem. At this moment in time, who do we engage with? Do we engage with the public statements from the principal, as security officers, yourselves and us? Or do we engage on the public or the official statement from the chief of staff, or from the issues that are coming up from the allies? My third question. We have a situation, and I want to, it's something about order of command. It has been raised by a couple of my colleagues here, the issue of when you bring in new formations around the deputy president, is there a structure that takes over that formation? It says that now you've come in around the deputy president, you report to this particular officer, or what exactly happens? I ask that for this reason. When we have a situation where a VVIP has security officers who are police officers, who are then protecting situations that are not legal or lawful, as my brother Masara might have raised, who do you question at that moment in time? You have a situation where police officers are not allowed, are not supposed to allow us to have public meetings. And then I have a public meeting, and my security escort is there with me. Are you able to ask him, as the IG, to give you information of what that particular issue that arose? Because maybe that is part of the problem we're having here. My final question, which actually has been sent to me by somebody from Nyeri, who apparently, I didn't know we were live, is, does the law determine how many officers a VVIP is supposed to have? Is there a constitution? Because sometimes I feel as if part of the reason we're in this problem, I have looked at the historical security of all the vice presidents that we have had. The decision that jumped from 30-something or 40-something or 50-something to 257, how was that decision made? And is that what we are suffering from now? Because once you give me, for example, as a member of parliament of Nyeri, if you give me 10 security officers today, and maybe the law just says that you have 1, then tomorrow you come at 5, and leave me with 5. I will clearly come and complain that you have downgraded my security, despite the fact that the law says I should only have 1. So part of the problem, and maybe the question you can help us is, how did you make the decision to have 257 officers? And is that what the law requires the deputy president to have? And at what point do you then reduce them? And does that go against the law? Thank you very much, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mujiri. And I think I asked that question from the onset. Another question that is troubling everybody, including I asked whether if I want to beef up mine, you can allow that to happen, and you skipped it. Maybe this time around you will be able to address it. But what is out of order?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Chair, we are discussing the matter security, actually government, the deputy president, the CS answering questions about security, which is government. I don't know where the issue of allies are coming from. What is allies in government? What is allies in government?
Well, I hear you, but I hope it's not me you're asking. If you ask me allies in English, I know what it means.
I'm asking through the chair. Honorable Wambugu said his allies. So I'm wondering, we are discussing government and security and the deputy president.
Okay.
What is his allies?
What are allies, Honorable Ngujiri Wambugu? What are allies?
Thank you very much. I'm actually very happy to answer that question. The reason we are seated here
Just explain who allies are.
The reason we are seated
the
here
definition
is
of allies.
There was a complaint that was public. That is what has raised us, given us the opportunity to, made us actually summon the CS and his team. That complaint has been public. The allies are the people who are associated with the Deputy President, his friends who are looking out for his interests. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's actually a good thing.
Yes, I think, and he alluded to, and this is very important, Honorable CS, he alluded to a letter written to IG of Police by the Chief of Staff, and I think that needs to come out so that in case, and if indeed it happened, then we also want to be privy to the contents of that letter. Honorable CS, I think you can go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, sir, and thanks, honorable members, for the questions that you have asked so far. Let me start in the order in which they were raised. The question that Honorable Mbai asked is about downgrading and whether or not we should comment about this. Let me be very frank as a public officer and the minister in charge of security in the country. Most of the debate that is going on about this, and anyone you hear talking about downgrading, definitely displays some measure of very frustrating ignorance. For example, the IG has got over 13 other units, some of them crack units that he could draw from in providing support to the Deputy President's security. When the Deputy President moves, for example, to some parts of the country, if the IG feels that he needs to bring in SOG or QRT or so on, you see people are raising questions. Many of the people are debating these things. First of all, don't understand the entirety of the formations of the police service. They don't understand the strengths and the capacities that we have and the training and the capacities of all the other formations. So people have just proceeded from a propagandist easy point of saying you're downgrading the security of the Deputy President and so on. We're not looking at the facts as they are. In that layer too that I have used to demonstrate to you that we actually call these in operational terms support services, because the core team that is supposed to protect the Deputy President is the presidential escort. This is what is prepared to protect the Deputy President. Whether he is driving, walking, flying, what have you, these are the people, it's intact, he's protected. Then support services, the IG has got over 13 units to draw from to provide support services. What tells you that this unit is stronger or weaker than the other one? And over a period of time, given the resources that we have deployed, there are other units that actually you do not know of that probably have got stronger and even better capabilities to do certain things. Because let's look at Article 10 of the National Police Service Act. It's very clear. The IG shall determine the distribution and deployment of officers in the service. And how does the IG determine? He uses the information that is given. He uses the intelligence that he receives. And from time to time, he will make certain changes. Why are we second-guessing the IG in the decisions that he has made when he has made so many of that decisions, of such decisions in the past on other areas? And we have demonstrated clearly that the deployment in terms of personnel and asset that we have given to protect this office and the holder of this office is very strong. In fact, Mr. Chairman, some small counties in this country, like Vihiga and Nyamira, for example, probably don't have this kind of deployment, and in terms of even assets, as it were, in providing the support that we are providing for this office. So the question of downgrade, and I would like to
sorry, what did you say?
I'm saying that there are some counties that are smaller in the country. The smaller counties like Vihiga, for example, probably don't have the strength of deployment and capacities and assets such as we have deployed to protect the holder of this office. So when people jump up and say, oh, there's downgrade and so on, in quality and operational terms, you'll have to go into an operation room and listen to the director of operations tell you everything about this before you make that kind of conclusion. I want to state here again categorically, for the record, there has not been any downgrade of the security of the Deputy President, period. So this banding words around really, honestly, is not fair. Why was this done? I explained, Mr. Chairman. I am willing to discuss that, but I can't discuss it in an open meeting. Because that is tantamount to sharing the notes of the National Security Council or the Minister of the Council in an open meeting like this, and I have no clearance to do that. Why and the background to this rearrangement, I cannot discuss in an open meeting, because I'll be going deep into an operational issue.
Are you able to discuss in camera if you have clearance? Do you have the clearance to discuss in camera?
If you provide...
This is the committee that oversees the issues of security.
If you provide an in-camera proceeding, maybe I will discuss that. I will be able to explain the background to that. But I can't explain it in an open meeting like this, because now I'll be moving into the realm of operational issues. And then my colleagues here, the heads of the agencies, will not allow me to go into operational issues in an open meeting like this. It's clear. Let's just be very frank with each other, Mr. Chairman, honorable members. The Deputy President's residence is not a state lodge. It is not a state house. The law is very clear. It's black and white. It's a residence. It's a residence of the Deputy President. It's not a state lodge. It's not a state house. You know, there's some things which look or sound politically sensible, but frankly, when you go by the law, they don't. How would you come up and use phrases such as are being used and so on? The framers of the Constitution, you are the legislators. Give me a law to work with on this basis. Give me a law that designates the residence of the Deputy President and makes it a state lodge. Then, on the basis of that law, I will gazette it. The gazettement of state lodges is very clear. The law is clear. The record is there. You know, the state lodges and state houses that are supposed to be protected by GSU. The residence of the Deputy President is neither a state lodge nor a state house. Sasa mimi nafikiri hapo, Mr. Chairman, ni sawa.
Just proceed with the rest.
Yeah. So the question of the politics of the decision that we made. You know, we are public servants. We are public servants. We work in a manner that we know we are going to be accountable to the public through members of parliament, through a committee like this. When we take decisions, we don't wake up in the morning and look at the weather and look at this. We make a decision that we believe is right to make at a particular time. We know that there are certain times where some political practice comes with some sympathy addiction. You know, the sympathy addicts who will look for sympathy over anything. And we have watched that sympathy addiction around the country where, you know, people draw sympathy over everything, you know, and so on. But you see, let me ask you a question. As people who expect these wonderful, good people seated on my left here to provide security for you, how would you operate in an environment where they wake up in the morning and check the political temperature, the weather before they make decisions? We believe in making right decisions. And the decisions that are right and necessary will be made, regardless of the time they are made. And as I keep saying, we in the security sector, we don't do this work to be popular. We would rather be right than popular. We want to do what is good for the country, what is good for the officers that we have been given to look after. If I had an opportunity and explained to you and Mr. Chairman went into details about how this decision was reached at, you will be very happy with us, because you will know that we have made very serious considerations. And this Inspector General, this gentleman seated to my left here, is a very considerate and very responsible public servant. So to cast aspersions and say, oh, you know, why was this done and so on, this is not a whimsical decision. It was a culmination. But as I said, I can't discuss those considerations in an open meeting unless, you know, you have an in-camera session at which I can discuss that, and I will share with you to an extent about that. The question of responsibility of police officers. You know, Mr. Chairman, this gives me an opportunity to respond to something that everybody asks me all the time. When public officers, for example, when members of government go to court and they are charged, for example, with murder or with very serious crimes, why does the Inspector General withdraw police officers from them? They do that because you don't want to put officers in conflict. Because you cannot get officers and tell them to go and commit a crime, or to accompany you to commit a crime, as it were. I understand and I hear you, honorable members, when you are saying if we are breaking the law, we are breaking COVID regulations, and we are in the company of police officers, what are we supposed to do? We all start, first of all, with the fundamental good faith in all of us. And as I said earlier, there must come a time in the positions that we hold when some of the actions we take are driven by our own moral positions. So if those leaders, some of them senior in society, feel that what they are doing is the correct thing, of course, it's for the public to judge. But we have kept pushing our police officers, and I am aware, because the Inspector General has told me, that he remains in constant communication with senior police officers in the command of those who guard such VVIP officers to ensure that they also assist in ensuring that the law and order is maintained. We hope that this situation will improve, but I can hear the concern that the honorable members have, and we'll continue to work at it. Is there alone the number of deployment? There is no law. I'll be very happy if you enacted one. Maybe if you actually enacted one and said, for every holder of an office, you'll be entitled up to X. It will be very happy. I mean, we will all be very happy, and I'm sure that the gentleman to my left will be very happy, because it will make their work much easier, as it were. But now, as it is, I gave you this example, Mr. Chairman. If today, for example, the holder of that office requested that I have a butchery in Rongai, and I need the butchery to be guarded, and you refused to guard the butchery, then the butchery was attacked tomorrow. I mean, if we are insulted now, look at how we are being excoriated for just a routine reorganization of security. Can you imagine what would happen to us if that happened? So when a request comes, we accede to it. And then we keep moving forward. And all these wonderful men in the police service are doing so in good faith.
And the question CS then was, up to what extent will you keep on acceding to requests? Up to which number will you then stop? Because as much as you're answering the others, you will now open this line for us to be able to ask for extra police officers or security officers, for that matter.
Well, please enact a law. I think let's end the debate there. If you enacted a law that brought about limits, that brought about talked about numbers, and then we can be able to solve that problem once and for all. The letter from the Chief of Staff that was written to the IG and to the Inspector General, to the Head of Public Service, and copied to our PS, Dr. Kibicho. You know, the less I said about these things, the better. To be very honest with you, because of one thing. You can notice how, in some cases, Mr. Chairman, to be very frank with you, if we are not careful as a country, we are sinking to new laws. Where in this world, just tell me, Mr. Chairman, where in this world would a holder of an office of Chief of Staff in a senior office like that write a letter and put it in social media before it even reaches the Inspector General of Police? Where? And then so on. You know, this issue has been characterized by some very juvenile activism, petty propagandism, and so on. And then the facts are lost in that process. And we don't want, because we are respectful of the institutions that we work, we don't want to go that direction. And we are not going to respond to those kinds of antics. We will do the work that we have been asked to do. That's why you have noticed that there hasn't been any correspondence from any one of us, including our Inspector General of Police. Because there are some institutions, if you subject them to disrepute, you erode the institutional respectability of your country, as it were. You end up vulgarizing the authority and legitimacy of those offices. Because the ideal situation is that if you are a Chief of Staff in an office like that and you have a challenge, you go to your charge. Your charge is the Head of Public Service. You don't even write to him. You pick up the phone because you have an extension to him, and you ask the Head of Public Service for a cup of coffee, and you discuss those things internally. This new wave where everything is written and sent to social media, this propagandist attitude, we have a responsibility, Mr. Chairman, and I want to undertake to you as a public servant. We have institutions, we inherited these institutions, and we have a duty to hand over institutions to the next generations that are intact with the respect that they deserve. The respectability of security sector institutions is not going to be vulgarized and dragged through the mud because of sympathy addiction and all that kind of thing. Thank you, sir.
All right, okay. We will then take Honorable Mbai. You have already spoken. So we are going to the next people. There are people who have not asked questions. Honorable Rosa. Honorable Kaunya. Honorable Shurir.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, first of all, I'd like to thank you for having been proactive, given that the matter we are discussing today has really been around and is causing a lot of tensions. I'd like to thank you for having been proactive. In the same breath, I'd like to also thank the CS for giving us such a detailed explanation. The reason why I'm thanking the CS is because information is power. And what is happening today in this country, Mr. Chair, is that we are being governed by propaganda. When I look at the details that the CS has given, Chair, I feel sad. I'm saddened to know, because what the country is being fed on is that the security detail that is in charge or is responsible for the security of the person of the Deputy President has been tampered with, has been withdrawn, and therefore he's been left exposed. When I look at the presentation that is before us, it is clear, and thank you, CS, for giving us this history. When you look at the history of the security detail in terms of the presidential escort unit for each of the former vice presidents of this country, it is clear that none of them had more than 14. All the former vice presidents had no more than 14 presidential escort units who were responsible for the security of the person of the vice president at that particular time. But it is clearly demonstrated here that the current holder of this office has 74 against 14 of all the former vice presidents. And this is why I'm saying that it is good that we have this information now so that the country can breathe and stop being governed by propaganda. When you compare the 74 to the 14, I will go further and look at the security in totality, where the current office holder has a total number of 257 or thereabout, either looking after security in his person and also security of his businesses or private businesses. 257 against the highest of 57 of the Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga when he was the Prime Minister at that particular time. So we are comparing 257 with that highest of 57. The reason why I'm bringing up this comparison is that so that Kenyans can actually see the reality that indeed one office has 257. This clearly brings me back to Animal Farm by George Orwell, where it says that indeed we are equal, but some people are more equal than others. And the demonstration here clearly shows that if you're a holder of the office of the Deputy President, you are indeed more equal than any other Kenyan. And Mr. Chair, I'd like to request the CS at this particular point, because I know Kenyans are watching, Kenyans are anxious, Kenyans feel exposed and unprotected. Could you kindly, in a very gentle manner, also let us know that as much as we are discussing the security of the Deputy President's office today, how exposed are these Kenyans? What is the ratio of this police security to the Kenyans? I would like to request for that. I would also, my second question, Chair, and I was quiet when everybody was talking, so I just request members to also give me that opportunity.
Honorable Peter Masara,
my second question.
You let Honorable Rosambu speak, and then you'll ask after that. If there is a point of order.
Yes, point of order.
That is how we are conducting business. Yes. Please.
My second question is I'd like to know from the CS and his office, is there a code of conduct that governs how you carry out your routine responsibility? For example, because everybody is asking, why now? Why now? And we've clearly seen that there was just a rearrangement. Rearrangement to me, coming from a background of being a teacher of English language, does not mean withdrawal. It does not mean downgrading. It is rearrangement. So I would request the CS to kindly let us know, is there a particular code of conduct which should govern your routine actions so that if you are withdrawing, if you are replacing an AP called Otieno with one called Kipyegon or another one called Wafula, are you bound by a code of conduct which should govern you and make you talk to the officer or talk to the Deputy President's office first before you replace Otieno with Kipyegon, with Wafula, or if there's an Asian, with Yatin? I'd like to know if there's a special code of conduct, and if you actually didn't follow that code of conduct, then why? That should be the question, not why now. Because if it's routine, I imagine that you can carry out your routine activities. But I'd like to know, is there a code of conduct that governs your actions when you have to?
Done?
Chair, I hope you're going to give us...
You have done 2 questions.
We have done 2 questions, and I don't want to be selfish by doing another one.
Yes.
But I hope you'll give us an opportunity to speak as Kenyans, as leaders. Because, Chair, I think as leaders, we must bear responsibility for this country. The people propagating and the people causing this propaganda and bringing the country into so much tension is nobody else but leaders.
Right.
But leaders on false information.
I hear you. I hear you. So let's do it this way. We finish with the business here, then you know what you can do as a politician, but not in the committee.
Chair.
Honorable Kaunya.
Point of order, Chair. Before
what is out of order?
Thank you very much, Chair.
Just 1 minute. What is out of order?
Chair, this is a house of record. Honorable, my sister Honorable Mbuya just mentioned that we are governed by propaganda. The right word is that other people want to guide by propaganda. We are being guided by the Constitution. The current government is governing this country by Constitution. But those who want to take over using propaganda.
No, let us stop that debate.
Chair, but what I said is, seemingly,
yes.
what the current country is going on now,
English.
It's like.
Yes, I heard you.
And Chair, a teacher of English cannot make silly mistakes like that.
I heard you. So if there was a mistake, it will be corrected. Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you very much.
Honorable Kaunya.
Thank you very much, Chairman, for giving me this opportunity. Chairman, I have 2 questions. Chairman, speaking with a background of having undertaken training for some of these officers that provide VVIP training and the critical infrastructure and vital installation protection. Chairman, last year, 2018, His Excellency the President, Uhuru Kenyatta, launched a police reform program that was meant to harmonize the command and control of officers in the field, and I believe was implemented. And my question is, Chairman, my question to our CS is if indeed these reforms took place, and in these reforms, Chairman, you'd recall that under the Constitution, the National Police Service is comprised of 2 units, the KPS and the APS. The distinctive roles were clearly specified in this arrangement of the reform, where the APS under DIG APS was to undertake that protection, critical infrastructure, the border, our borders under the border patrol units, and of course the protection of the VVIPs fell under that unit. And the Kenya Police Service were to undertake other roles as specified. And these roles, I believe, if that was implemented, and I think that's a question I want to ask the CS, then the question of all these rearrangements is actually, Chairman, misplaced, because the units that are supposed, and they have been trained very well on protection of very important people, VVIPs and VIPs, are the Gender Service Unit and the APS. And Chairman, you recall just 2 weeks ago, Chairman, we were at Kanyonya, Chairman, you'll recall, where we have the Border Patrol Unit and the training. You witnessed the kind of training of the QRT, for example, the Quick Response Unit. Is one of the most well-trained units that actually is supposed to be guarding the president. Now, based on that reorganization, CS, if you can clarify, even for the public, it would really help everybody to understand that aspect. The second question, I believe that our police officers are well professionally trained and they are doing a good job. Of course, they need to be funded in those areas of shortcoming. But, Chairman, there is something that needs to be clarified by the CS. Whether there is a gap in law in terms of the numbers we deploy, more particularly, Chairman, I want to give an example. In America, when Donald Trump was elected to be president, he resigned from all the companies he was guarding. I think there's something not very, very clear about what the CS brought out, that requests for guarding of even a butchery. I think this question has either gap, and I think the CS, if you can clarify, then, Chairman, I would propose as a committee, we come up with amendments to make sure some of those gaps are fixed. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, thank you. I thought you would start by saying you were previous commandant of which college?
Chairman, I was commandant of the AP Training College at Embakasi, and some of these officers who have been deployed to guard is the Deputy President are some of the most well-trained internationally, not local training. They are trained internationally.
Okay, thank you.
So, and very, very have the confidence that they have what it takes to do the job. Thank you.
Honorable Shule.
Thank you, Chair. Mike, I have two questions for the CS. There was this famous gentleman by the name Kenei. Could he tell the committee, was this gentleman a GSU officer who worked at the DP's office? Was he a GSU officer or an administration police officer? Question number two. Tongi. I think he came here because he's from, is it Nyamira Map?
No. Let me clarify. He is wanting to ask question, and I'm telling him I received no notice. So if you gave me no notice, you're not going to allow. Those are in the standing orders 195. Yeah, I have only one notice from the Honorable Junet.
Okay,
proceed.
Thank you, Chair. Question one was whether Kene was a GSU officer or an AP officer, and I think he worked at the DP's office. Question two, the CS did mention he cannot share the reasons as why the changes occurred because of operational reasons. Just, is the Deputy President supposed to be made aware of the changes prior to that changes happening and the reasons why the changes were made? If so, was he briefed prior to the changes being made? Thank you, Chair.
That question had been asked, so you can only maybe go over the answer again. Now,
Chairman.
Honorable Mbai, because there are people who have not asked questions, and they are members of this committee, and they need to engage. So allow your colleagues.
Clarification, Chair, not a new question.
Not clarification. Let the others finish. Be fair to them also. We want to take final round because of time. So, Honorable CS, I want to take the remainder of the people so that then you can answer all of it together. Then we come to a close. Is that okay? Or is it too heavy? All right, okay. For those who haven't spoken, Yes, Honorable Tekla Tum, who is following us virtually, can you ask your question now? Ask your question now.
Honorable Chair, I have 2 or 3 questions and comments.
And make it brief because of time. Eh?
Yeah, I'm making it, yes.
Thank you.
One, what does the Constitution say about the security of the Deputy President? Number 2, was he informed when the officers are removed from his residence? Number 3, Honorable Chair, research, there was a research done, and it has shown that Kenya is number 4 of the people who are having stress levels. Honorable Chair, we are 1 year or less to the elections, and we have to take care of everything we are doing now, even in the security. I normally talk very well of our security apparatus, and I know the CS is very good in his job, but he has to tell the people who are doing the operations, the transfers are not abused, to do things in the right way. Honorable Chair, as politicians, the Deputy President inclusive, have a following, and you cannot control the people in such scenarios. So, Honorable Chair, let's not take things easy. It is not as easy as that. As members of the security, we want the security of all Kenyans and the top leadership inclusive. That is my contribution, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Dr. Tekla Tum. I can confirm that we have heard all your questions and the CS has taken note. We will leave you and we'll keep you on so that you can get the answers when he starts replying. Honorable Junet, sorry, it's not Honorable Junet, sorry, for the remainder of the team, the committee, because the standing order say we shall first give the members of the committee, those who are interested, Honorable Kaluma, and then Honorable Vice Chair. Then in that order, after that we'll go to Honorable Junet.
I thank you, Chair, and I thank you, CS. Chair, I traveled from Homa Bay to Nairobi by road last night. In fact, I arrived here, Chair, you remember. I communicated with you at 5 a.m. in the morning, believing that the Deputy President was exposed. Chair, I'm saying this because from the statement I have here, I disturbed my person traveling by road of a person whose security detail is bigger than the entire security detail guarding Homa Bay County. And I think I want to request that in as much as we play politics, we should not play politics with matter security. Chair, to put this matter in context, the Deputy President, in his usual manner, says he has no problem with the security reorganization around him. But the politicians around him are saying there is a downgrade and undue exposure. And this, based on that of his chair, is occasioning unnecessary anxiety in public mind. So Chair, my first question or request is that the people around the deputy, some are not just politicians, CS. And in as much as you are saying you should not be bothered by the letter which came from the Chief of Staff of the Deputy President, the public concern about this matter commenced from that letter. Yeah, I saw it on Twitter and I asked what was happening. In fact, I was asking why didn't the Deputy President's Chief of Staff, knowing the security channels and arrangements, speak with them in a manner that protects the integrity and the professionalism of our security apparatus. So that, Chair, I will be seeking your directions at the end, that in as much as the CS and his team say they are not politicians, they want to do their work and leave it at that, the matter of the conduct of that Chief of Staff in the office of the Deputy President being an employee under our charge as Parliament is a matter that must be dealt with. So that I'm confirming that after this, if it has not come from the committee on its own motion, I'll bring it before the committee so that he can come here and tell us the code of conduct under which he operates when he writes and posts things in the social media in the manner he's doing. But CS, this matter has been taken as a discourse outside there because the members of the public and the media, which is our main channel of communication, do not take time to understand the law beginning with the Constitution. In fact, CS, I'm shocked at the manner and the extent to which our very competent officers in the administration police service have been undermined. When you hear people comparing our APs to even G4S, I think we don't understand what the administration police service is and the Kenya police are. So I would have requested that because the media is here and Kenyans are watching, you have elaborated not only provisions of the standing order. I think for the sake of the public, you would have, made a few mentions of it now that the media is showing these proceedings. And more particularly, Chair, the units which have been created under both Kenya Police Service and Administration Police Service and what they are in charge of. Because you see, Chair, people have been saying the Deputy President is not being protected. Us in the committee know that the Presidential Escort Unit, which is a unit affiliated to the General Service Unit, is protecting the person of the Deputy President as they do that of the President. You are being told that a change in terms of the officers guarding the residents was a downgrade. What the CS needs to tell the public is when this Security of Government Buildings Protection Unit was established and its mandate, that people can understand that there is a unit specific to protection of those critical installations, the government buildings like the deputy's residence. Lastly, CS, if you look at the statement at page 2, you are clarifying who the GSU, anybody who wants the residents of the Deputy President to be included in this category. And what they should be proposing is the inclusion. But before the inclusion, really, you cannot obligate the IG to install GSU to guard a residence not mentioned as a residence is obligated to take care of. So I would request, Chair, that the CS makes a bit of these mentions for clarity because we are live. Mention the various units. I imagine, Chair, that even the Border Patrol Unit, the Anti-Stock Theft Unit, even this GSU, clarify to Kenyans whether they are under Kenya Police or Administration Police so that people can understand these things. And to me, that would be good in terms of explaining. And what are these units and their formations and their roles? But Chair, I regret we have taken too long playing politics over an office that is protected more than my county. And that is the aspect that saddens me.
Honorable Vice Chair.
Chair, let me also join my colleagues in thanking the CS for really telling us the truth and also telling the Kenyans the truth. Matter security, Chair, is something that you cannot compromise as the committee, as the members of this committee. And I'm surprised, and I know why, the reason why now. I saw yesterday the Deputy President say he doesn't want this matter to be discussed by the Committee of Parliament. And now I know the reason why. Maybe he didn't want Kenyans to know the truth. And thank you, CS, now we know the truth. Just, Chair, I've done a small calculation on police population ratio to the citizens. And I found out it's 1 to 600. 1 to 600. One person has 257 officers share, meaning 254,200 Kenyans are exposed. And this is a person who calls himself a hustler. What happens to the hustlers who are in Korokocho chair? What happens to the ordinary Kenyans who live along the borders, especially where I come from? That is for the CS. Just a question to the IG. CS, you told us there is direct request from the VVIPs or the Deputy President to the IG. All these officers who allocated him, was it your predecessor IG or it is you? If it is your predecessor who did this, then I understand you want to now do rearrangement or change things. So maybe you can tell us, was it your predecessor who did this mess, or it is you that you want to come and correct this mess? Lastly, my chair to CS, we have been seeing politicians who have been faking arrest so as to blame the security so that they can have sympathy, incite Kenyans, so that they can be seen like they are the lesser or they are being treated unfairly. And it happened many times. And we have not seen any arrest to the politicians or any person who has been faking or spreading propaganda. So we want you to proceed and do arrest. If you could have done these things before, maybe today, these things, we could not have been discussing this. So we want you to do your work. Nobody should intimidate you. This committee is the committee that oversights your ministry. Kindly do your job, do what is right, so that Kenyans can have hope, and that is what we want to see. Thank you, Chair.
Which question was not answered?
Chair, I've just your office of the Deputy President. Who should we listen to? Should we listen to the Deputy President? Should we listen to the Chief of Staff? Or should we listen to his allies? So that we are able to know when we have an official complaint, who should we listen to? Because if we have one situation where the Deputy President says he's okay, then his allies say he's not, then the Chief of Staff says he's not, who, as a committee, should we be listening to? Thank you.
I think that's fairly straightforward. Honorable Jeanette.
Chair, I was to get a clarification.
Thank you so much, Chair. Chairman, yeah. Honorable Bai, just let me finish that round. I'll give you that clarification. But I hope it's not another question you're asking. All right. Okay.
Chair, thank you, Chair. Chair, in accordance with the standing orders of Parliament, I wrote a letter to you yesterday requesting to attend the committee as a friend of the committee. And I want to thank you for accepting my request. That's what the standing order says, that you write to the chair of the committee. Initially, first I misunderstood. I wrote to the speaker, but I retrieved it. I wrote back to you. Having said, Chair, I have just one or two questions, Chair. First, Chair, according to the document provided by the minister, and you see, Chair, government is run through traditions and precedents. And the previous traditions and precedents, Mr. Chair, have shown that the former holders of the office of the Vice President or Deputy President had very few numbers of policemen or women, 22, 24, 12. We are dealing with a case of 257 here, Mr. Chair. 257, Chair. Chair, where I come from in my constituency, the last census, the population was 204,000 people. And the number of police officers who are there are not more than 70, 80 in my constituency. When I divided that by this 204, one police officer is guarding 3,300 people in a day. Especially the night is worse. One policeman is guarding in my constituency 3,300 people, Mr. Chair. And here we are discussing 257. My question actually is not about the law now, because we have all agreed there is no law that guides how to assign a policeman to VIPs. But it's a question of morality. I want to ask the minister in charge of security whether this is moral to give one person 257, and people in my constituency have only 80 police officers with a very junk old police vehicle, which you have to push at night when it wants to wake up. Secondly, Mr. Chair, I saw the minister the other time revamping the private sector security, the so-called private sector, G4S and other names. And why I thought he was revamping that private security so that they can guard private enterprises properly, so that they are regulated and private enterprises are safe. Now, when the minister and the IG are deploying policemen to private premises, what will the G4S do? What will these private firms do? Because that is their work. You have taken policemen to butcheries, to guard butcheries. Surely, what will this? We have over 100,000 employees in the private sector, in the private, these private security firms. What will those officers do if you're deploying to every hotel, every butchery, farm in Taita Taveta, 2,500 acres of land with cows? You're deploying policemen there, hotels, policemen, everywhere policemen. What will these private citizens, what will they guard, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Chair? So, how also? My question is based, laws are made to guide morality. Let's leave laws alone. Let's now go to the morals of our society. Whether it is moral to deploy a policeman to guard your private enterprises when we have over 100,000 Kenyans who are employed to do the kazi of private security. Lastly, Chair, it's very surprising that we have Kenyans who are not properly secured. Cattle wrestling in the Rift Valley, theft everywhere. And then you can deploy 257 members, security members, to kuchunga shamba ya kuku, shamba ya samaki, nyumba ya mpango ya kando. Chair, I'm done. I don't want to ask another question. The minister must apologize to Kenya, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Chair, why that happened? Honestly, he must apologize. Leave alone removing or deploying. He must tender an apology to Kenyans that it will not happen again.
Thank you very much. What were you clarifying, Honorable Mbai?
Thank you, Chair. The reason I've been very persistent is, Chair, I've served as an administrative police officer for 14 years. And it pains me when I see the deployment of administrative police officers being termed as a downgrade. It can't be. These are officers who are highly trained. My concern is, we know in their rearrangement, and especially the current president of the deputy president, GSU officers were moved, and administrative police officers from actually the right unit, which is supposed to guard the deputy president's residence, were deployed. What never came out clear is about the numbers, because I asked how many GSU officers were moved and how many administration police officers from the SGB were deployed.
Yeah, I remember, yes. Thank you. That is also straightforward, Honorable CS. I'll allow you then to have a go at the answers. Then the tail end, we will ask you to do the remarks after we have listened to the answers. And remember, there are questions that you have not tackled, like Honorable Ambugus, that one from Honorable Mbai. You'll also, in the process, answer them.
Chairman, I'm here.
Thank you.
Order, Honorable Robbie.
Yes. I've been raising my hand.
You raise your hand, but you don't belong to this committee. And I hope you have not come to create a drama.
No, I'm not.
Yes, we have standing orders. And the standing orders dictate, Honorable Mbai, that you write to the chair 24 hours before.
Chairman, I notified you yesterday.
Listen to me. You write to the chair 24 hours before and even indicate the subject matter you want to address. So we have done well to allow you to listen. That is good enough. Beyond that, if you then proceed to disrupt this committee,
I'm not disrupting.
We will follow the standing orders.
I'm not disrupting.
Okay. So you listen to what is going on and
allow me to
take your cool.
This committee chair.
Honorable Robbie, please. Honorable Robbie. Honorable Robbie, I'll read the standing orders now. You must
you
be able.
The chair I notified you yesterday.
Can you bring a copy of that letter? Do you have a letter? It's all right. You have a letter. You want to cause drama so that Kenyans
Not
can
a
see?
drama, Chair.
Yes, then bring the letter. I'm a stickler of processes.
Okay.
Honorable CS.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, I will do my best to go over all the questions. We try to take as meticulous notes to my peers and I so that we don't forget anything. Honorable Rosabu, you asked the question of the police to population ratio. Currently is 1 to 600. The UN standard is 1 to 450. We are working hard to get to at least to the UN level standards. The truth of the matter is this, honorable members, as you know, we didn't recruit for about 2 years because of budgetary issues, and because also we wanted to step up the equipment and acquisitions for our security sector so that we are at bar with some of the challenges that we are facing right now. Now that we have resumed again the recruitment, we will be working hard, subject to budget allowing, to ensure that we move fast enough to meeting the standards. And I know that you asked the question in the context of the deployment that we now have explained that we have done with the Office of the Deputy President. I understand, and I think this issue has come up again and again. We, Mr. Chairman and honorable members, we learn through experiences. Now all of us as a country are learning, because this is intertwined with a question that was asked by another member of parliament. I think it's Honorable Kaluma who said, what happens to, no, it's Honorable Ogu Kaunya who talked about businesses and public office. Because the expectation is that when you are in public office, you're supposed to walk away from private sector responsibilities so that then the two issues don't clash, such as cases we're having to deal with. It tells us one thing, honorable members, there's some work that we still need to do. There's some work we need to do in terms of tightening the law. There's some work we need to do in terms of looking at Chapter 6 and tightening our responsibilities, because quite clearly there is an overlap or the clash between business and public office sometimes can cause challenges such as we are dealing with. But again, on this particular scope, I plead for my colleagues, the heads of the security agencies. You know, if you are the Inspector General and you receive a request of this kind, it becomes very difficult to say no. We have been riding on this, as I say, unregulated question on the numbers and the extent of deployment, and now is the time for us to look at it again and come up with a statutory action that will now regulate the numbers and say, for example, even if you are VVIP, the ratios of the officers deployed to you will not exceed this number, as it were. Otherwise, if we leave it open as it is now, and no one knows this better than Honorable Okaunya, because he was in this sector before, he faced the same issues before. If we leave it open like that, these issues will keep recurring, and you can see clearly the propensity to abuse this is real. It can be abused. For example, in 2018, we all agreed at the National Security Council that we are surrendering prison warders from protection duties, because, when we looked at the ratio of prison warders to inmates, it became clear that we have enough numbers in the APS, in the SGB, and the new commando units we are creating to provide VIP protection. So let us all return, officers from the prison service to do their correctional service work. But you can see still, even in the contingent that is guarding the Office of the Deputy President, we have about 13 officers from the prison service. So unless there is a strict and stringent regulation and enactment of the same, and then we enforce it, all of us, so that it applies across the board, we'll keep encountering these challenges as we go along. Is there a special code of conduct on how to handle these changes and deployments when they come? The answer is actually no. As Honorable Buyu asked, because as I said, we cannot second guess the Inspector General of our National Police Service. He takes decisions on our behalf throughout. He takes decisions on 24-hour cycle, and he has the best intelligence and information to make certain decisions. So we cannot require him that if I want an officer from my ethnic community, you must write to me and then I get the letter and so on. There's no security system that operates that way around the world. You know, we are becoming more and more modern, the state. So in respect, therefore, I'm saying, Mr. Chairman, that there is no code of conduct that was violated in this case, in terms of the changes that were made. Nothing was violated. And in fact, there's a question I don't want to ask now because it can steer us off to another debate. How is it that these questions are being asked now when we have done this rearrangement several times before, even in that office? How come these issues are coming up now? And we've done so many of those rearrangements before in many other VVIP offices, including that one. So the question is, it's because we are within a political context and straightforward professional departmental actions are being unnecessarily politicized and being subjected to emotional and irrelevant politics, unfortunately to the detriment of the stability of the country. But I think on a balance of probabilities going forward, after the clarifications we have made today, we are all going to be aligned on this, because facts are as they are, things are clear to everybody. There is no downgrade of anything here. We know we are doing what we must do, and we are continuing. But I cannot plead with you enough as a committee that we need statutory action on these issues of ratios, even for VVIPs and numbers and so on. Otherwise, you are going to force police officers to open an OB for chicken. You are putting police officers to guard a poultry farm, so they will now be running an OB there for chicken. This chicken arrived at this time, they at this time, and so on. It's a joke in the long run if we are not, going to be organized in that kind of manner. Honorable Okukaunya asked the question about police reforms and the unified command. It's a question of the unified command. As you know, and Mr. Chairman, indulge me to say this is more or less like a personal comment, that every time you listen to somebody like Honorable Okukaunya speak, you feel the pleasure of a knowledgeable person, because he's speaking from a position of knowledge. If people were debating these issues from that kind of position, we wouldn't even be having this kind of hullabaloo around the country. It's because, you see, the quest for a unified command was intended to make police effective, efficient in the delivery of service, but also, again, to grow our capacities to deal with our dynamic challenges in the security sector. That is why, for example, when we came up with an all-women commando team, that is now making headlines and doing us great stuff, is because we wanted to have this integrated, prepared, because there are circumstances where we need to deploy special units of that kind, as it were. The unified command is a journey, Honorable Kaunya. It is not going to happen in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years. Even we internally are having a debate, because since 2018, when His Excellency the President directed this and began this phase of working on a unified command, we worked on this for about 3 years, and sometimes we step back and ask ourselves the question, is it working well for us? For example, how does it relate to Ngao? And how does it relate to deployment? Is it interfering with what we are doing? The questions abound. But we are just about to begin reviewing, the implementation of this for the last 3 years. I know issues will come up, or some things we need to change, as it were. But it is a journey. It's something we are working towards. But now, and I think that's what you are referring to, because of that unified command, it is much easier to integrate the various units and various formations to get them to focus on a task at one time. If we have a challenge, for example, at a particular border point, we actually can pull together, for example, ASTU, QRT, Border Patrol, and the GSU, even if it's contingent of, the G company, and deliver on the assignments that we have. That's exactly what we are doing right now in Laikipia, where we are forcing a challenge. And our GSU commandant was briefing us this morning about his approach, and you can see clearly that because of that unified command approach, we are moving more towards being much more effective in terms of responding to the present challenges that we deal with. But it's a journey, and because you are our committee, when we do the assessment and the evaluation of what you have done, we'll bring the report to you and we'll discuss it with you, and many of you who come from this background will have an opportunity to comment about what we need and what we need to do better to strengthen ourselves, as it were. Is there a gap in the law in terms of business and public officers? The answer is yes. And as I've said, you can see the conflict that we are dealing with. It's apparent. It was spoken to very strongly by Honorable Rosa Buyu and Honorable Kaunya. It's some of the reasons why we are facing the challenges. Honorable, the late Sergeant Kenei came from the AP, and he was part of the staff, 40 strong personnel from the AP at the Arambe House Annex, which is the office of the Deputy President. I think that's a direct answer, and that is it. Was the DP made aware? This was asked by Honorable Tekla, and I think I answered this question earlier, Mr. Chairman. You know, there is a distinction. There is a what you may call a fundamental change, and there is what is routine and quasi-routine. Just imagine if every day you are reorganizing, you are doing deployment. I gave you a classic example. Forget about the person of the DP and somebody who occupies the office of the DP. Just let's take a routine office like a regional commissioner. If every time you are doing rearrangement, the Inspector General was doing rearrangement of the police command in Nairobi, he has to keep writing and so on. I mean, it's unnecessarily laborious, as it were, because all of us work in this context, and all the actors who are supposed to be there know what needs to happen. There was nothing major that was being done here. And as I said clearly, if we weren't in this political context where we are, no one would even be talking about it. And actually, some of this rearrangement has been done before, even in that office. But it has not raised this kind of hullabaloo and so on. It's just because of the political environment in which we are, and now, anything goes, as it were. Even if it is a simple, straightforward action, it's held hostage by the politics of the day, and then now people go to town, becomes the subject of and church speeches and so on and so forth. I honestly don't think that this is something that required that kind of thing. About the Honorable Tekla asked about the Constitution and the security of the Deputy President. I think I've answered this question several times. By law and by tradition, His Excellency the Deputy President is guarded by the Presidential Escort Unit with a special team that is set aside for that particular purpose. Does the current holder of the office have that? I answered that, and I've actually provided the statistics and the figures about who is there. About the followers' stress, Honorable Tekla was asking about people are stressed and followers are getting stressed. Well, followers get stressed because their leaders stress them. So simple as that. Because the followers, get stressed because their leaders stress them. Because you wake up in the morning and what you're drumming to people is things like this, basically lying to people. If you wake up every day, your business is to lie to people, tell them things that do not exist. Lie every day, and you have seen that. You are all here. You have seen that in this country, where you can almost conclude that some people's career is about lying. They will never tell anything truthful. You wake up in the morning and misinterpret things and talk about things that have not happened anywhere. Oh, we are being finished. That's why I said the politics of sympathy addiction. Everything is about sympathy. Sympathize with me. I am dying, I'm being finished. The government is switching off the sun and the moon and so on. If you live that way, then you stress your followers. The stress of your followers is coming from the stress of the leaders. If leaders were honest with people, addressed issues honestly, and are dealt with matter, why would the followers be stressed? The followers are stressed because of their leaders. That is my view, and that's what I would tell Honorable Tekla. That let people address the issues in a dispassionate manner, in a very clear and objective manner, and there will be no issue about it. Honorable Ngunjiri is worried, so who do we trust when it comes to issues of security and so on? I would like to reiterate this position, which has been made clear by many people, many greater people and greater minds than myself and my colleagues before you this morning. But we are leaders for a season. We have been given an opportunity to make a contribution to our country for a season. We are not going to be here forever. I am, I think, the 12th or 13th Minister of Interior. There will be a 14th, a 15th, and even a 64th Minister of Interior in Kenya. While we have the opportunity, we do what is right for our people and what is right for the country. And the formal communications and formal channels of engagement are clear to everybody that we address each other with a measure of respect. But Mr. Chairman, let me say this, and this was spoken to very eloquently by Honorable Kaluma. Nothing will sustain us than protecting institutions that have been created by the Constitution and by the law. And institutions are bigger than all of us. But you see, if you get engaged in subverting institutions and undermining institutions from time to time, it becomes a challenge, as it were. So who do we believe? We will believe formal, proper, truthful, factual communication from an office. That's what we will believe. And there are structures. This is a government that is about over 6 decades old. We have found a tradition. This country has been managed by people since 1963 to this day, and they have established traditions of engagement and how you conduct government business. If you have a challenge, you go to your supervisors and discuss it with them. You don't write letters, using street language, and then you put it in social media, and then, you engage in cheap populism, throwing an irrelevant tantrum, in the hope of gaining sympathy. You're basically playing for sympathy, and not caring about the country as it were. So, Honorable Mujiri, who do we believe? We believe formal, factual, truthful communication that respects the structures of government, knowing as we do, and as we must at all times, that we are only individuals. We are here today, tomorrow we are gone. And then we must hand over to the generations that come after us the institutions that were handed to us. Honorable Junet asking the question, is it moral, the situation that we have right now? I think as a honest public servant, I would be pretending if I didn't honestly say I also don't think it's moral, what we have right now. I am as chastised as everyone else is on this particular matter. And I agree, and my colleagues at the Ministry of Interior and all the heads of the agencies will work with you, honorable members, to look at the law and see how we rectify this situation, so that it may not be abused as we go into the future. Because where there are no regulations, where there are no good controls, the propensity for abuse is huge. And then none of us is holy enough not to be tempted to abuse, discretion, if that discretion is not controlled or discretion is not guided. And then, and a situation emerges where you abuse discretion, then you turn around after you abuse discretion and claim sympathy, and so on. So in this particular case, because human beings are human beings, and we are all human beings, and we can make mistakes. Where challenges of this kind exist is where we, as the executive branch of government, reporting to you as the people of Kenya's representatives, we need to work with you to see how we can overcome these kinds of challenge through statutory action, as it were. And I think finally, I'm grateful. If you allow me, Mr. Chairman, to make my final comment. The Honorable Vice Chair asked a question, and the Inspector General has whispered to me here that, I respond to it. Is this work that was done by the previous IG or something else? Institutions are continuous. I would hesitate to individualize actions and individualize things when they have happened. Let us now step on to a new order which says, notice where the gaps are and the challenges, and now let us learn from them. And I think, if I say so on behalf of my colleague here, the Inspector General, I think that satisfies the situation. Let's not individualize or particularize. Let us now learn from it and come together as a people who love their country and want their country to do better and correct mistakes that have been done. I would like to stop there, Mr. Chairman, unless you'd like me to make a closing remark.
Yes, I for avoidance of doubt, I wanted members so that we are clear. You will, so that we are clear, and we are just doing the final remarks now. I'll give you, Honorable Vice Chair. But I wanted so that we know the provisions of Standing Order 195, which is very important, so that we don't look like we don't want to give our colleagues space to speak, so that we follow the process the way it's supposed to be. That a member may attend a meeting of any committee of the House of which he or she is not a member, but such member shall not be entitled to vote in any matter. And 2, that a member who intends to participate in a meeting of a committee of the House of which she or he is not a member shall submit a written request to the chairperson of the committee at least 24 hours before the meeting. And 3, The request shall indicate any matter which the member intends to raise at the meeting. And number 4 is where the chairperson allows, because the chairman can decline, but where the chairman allows a request to participate under paragraph 2, the member may attend the meeting and raise any matters indicated in his or her own request. But finally, that the chairperson may order an member of the committee to withdraw from a meeting for disorderly conduct. So that we don't look like, we don't want to give you, you haven't followed the procedure, but we allowed you to sit in Honorable Robi to listen. And I think that is very important and fair. Vice Chair, the last one.
Chair, it's not a new question. I think she has left the question about the arrest. We have a chief of staff who's a civil servant who wrote a letter and used the social media in spreading propaganda to incite Kenyans. So what are you going to do about that? And secondly, about leaders who are faking arrests so as to incite Kenyans to spread propaganda. What are you doing about that? Because that is where the problem is.
Chair, could the CS also...
Order. You did not ask to speak.
I beg you, Chair. Just in his last comments.
Yes.
Because this is something which has disparaged the stature and the standing of the officers serving in administration police service. Could I be in order, Chair, to request the CS that in his closing remarks, he puts a word of reassurance, not only to those officers, but also to Kenyans that indeed officers serving under our administration police service have the best training, if not better than any others we are thinking about. They need that assurance. They are very disheartened by this politics.
Very well.
Chair, before you give, it's like my question escaped the CS, Chair.
Which was?
About the numbers.
Okay. You will pick up that together with your final remarks and what I'm just about to say. Members, this matter is in public domain. We are even aware that a senator had written to the Speaker of Senate to recall Senate to discuss the matter. But I think this is the most appropriate committee to discuss it, and that is why we are on top of things.
Security is not a default function.
Yeah, what is important, and the Speaker of Senate knows as much, and he said that this belongs to the National Assembly, and that's why we are on top of this.
The minister should ignore it.
So, Honorable CS, I want you to know that if you are able, maybe